everybody, welcome to Friday Nights with Emma. How is everybody? How's everybody doing out there? Tonight, oh yeah, before I go on to the next bit, make sure you give me a wave or a thumbs up or a little heart just to let me know that you're there. And if I disappear, which I, touch wood, hasn't happened for the last few weeks, if I do disappear, just hit refresh and it'll come back. But like I said, we haven't had any trouble, so we'll see. Oh, hi Dawn. So, oh, hi Joan. Hi everybody. Everybody's joining. Oh, hi. So, this week is a continuation from last week on the binding. So I promised everybody that I would show you how to make bias binding this week. And I have. So, I started, I've kind of cheated. I've gotten ahead of myself. So there's a little bit of maths involved with making enough bias binding for your project. It's not too bad. I will write down the formula as well as telling you so that once it's posted, I'll put a little picture of the formula so you'll have it. Oh, hi Debbie. So it's basically, you measure the perimeter either of your quilt or of your cushion or whatever, however length you need your bias binding to be. So first you need to work out your length, how much you need. Hi Debbie. And then you multiply the length by the width of the bias strip that you'll be using. Now that depends totally on personal preference. I tend to use a 3-inch strip because I find that, because I always fold it over, I double it when I sew it on and then fold it over again, and 3 inches gives me just enough so that when I fold it over and I hand sew it down, that it's comfortably covering my initial stitch line. Oh, hi Helen. Hi Pam. So I tend to go with 3 inches. A lot of people do 2.5. For me, I find that a bit scant, but it's whatever size width you need. So to recap, you multiply the length that you need by the width of the bias strip that you'll be using. Oh, hi Diana. And then you square root that number. So you multiply the length by the width, take the square root of that number, and then you add 2. And that gives you the size square of fabric that you need. Oh, hi Margaret. To make your bias binding. So what I tend to do, rather than measuring, I tend to make the biggest square I can. So I will take my width of fabric and fold it over. So if this is my width of fabric, I fold it over so that I make a triangle, basically fold it at right angles, so I match one edge to the selvage edge, and then I usually rip it to make one big square. So width selvage to selvage varies depending on your fabric, but it can be anywhere. Oh, hi Kathleen, hi Maggie, hi Laurie. Oh, I'm catching up with everybody. Hi Christine, hi Lorraine. Yeah, so width of fabric, selvage to selvage, varies a little bit from about 40 sometimes up to about 44. So what you'd want to do is have it, however wide your fabric is, have it be as long, basically. Because in my opinion, well, for me, I don't think you can have too much bias binding. It's always good. You always have some left over. You don't want to run out. And you can always use it for other projects as well. So that's what I tend to do. Right, so you've got your square. Next thing to do is to cut it in half diagonally so you have 2 triangles, which is what I've done already. Let me match it up again. So what I do is I fold my square in half once I've got it cut. So you can see it's one big triangle like that. So I fold it in half, and then along this line where it's normally a fold, I just use my ruler, place my ruler over it and put it right up to the edge, so there's maybe 1/8 of an inch showing off of the fold, and then I cut the fold off. So about 1/8 of an inch all the way across, I just cut it off. I find that's the easiest. What you can also do is once you've folded it into your triangle, you can just give it a press, a really good press, either with fingers or with a seam roller, or you could do it with your iron if you wanted to, and then just cut with scissors along your fold line so that your square is in 2 triangles. Okay, so your square's in 2 triangles. You then take them apart. If I can remember how to do this. You have to take them apart, and then you have to sew them into like a parallelogram, which sounds complicated, but put my straight edge to my straight edge, straight edge to my straight edge. I've got one done, so you'll be able to see the whole finished thing. So I've just shifted it all across. So I've got right sides together, and if I hold it up, you might be able to see what I've done. So I've got, see this one, you can see the right side of the fabric facing you. You can see how I've folded it, and then this is the wrong side facing you. So it ends up like a big, I guess like a big handkerchief, like that. And then all along here is even. So that, yeah. And then you just sew along this line. What you need to do, because you're going to have a triangle there, is whatever size seam allowance you take, you have to have that little triangle extended over the end for the same width. So when you go to sew, your needle, when it goes in, will be right here. And if it's not right there, if it's either a little bit over this way or a little bit over this way, just readjust that triangle so that whenever you're gauging your seam allowance, your needle starts right there where that triangle comes to an end. And then it will do the same at the other end, because it'll extend out this side. It will end, you should be able to sew directly across to here, and that will be your seam. Now, I've already done one. I'll put that down there. I've already done one, so I can open it up and I can show you what the whole shape kind of looks like. So you can see, this is one of my, if I start at the top, this is one of my triangles. And you can see that's the seam right there. And then the triangle underneath is a straight edge along this side. And then the pointy end. So it's like a big, see if I can move back a bit. It's like a big parallelogram, basically. Just like that. And then if I fold it back over, you can see from that seam line that my bottom looks like kind of like a handkerchief at the bottom, like that. So hopefully you can see that. Right, so you make your seam line. The next thing you need to do is mark the width of your bias strip on the back of the fabric. So I've done that using a pencil. You can see I've done lines. Now when you do this part, it's very important that, let's see if you can see, let me move my light over so you can see it a bit better. You need to start so that your ruler edge is against, this is the bias edge right here. This is the middle of my triangle that I cut. So the middle of my square rather. This is the center point. So you can see that's on the bias. I don't know if you can see the grain very well. But you want to mark your lines so that they are parallel to the bias edge. Ask me why. That's important, because if you do it the other way, it won't work. And I have done it the other way and then realised, marked the whole thing and then realised I'd marked it wrong and I had to redo it. So how you'll know is, if I hold this up, you see the lines, straight lines. The lines then they go across the seam will be at an angle, if that helps. So yeah, so you draw your lines across. This is the straight edge. This is the straight edge, and your lines will be at an angle, 45-degree angle to your straight edge, but they will be parallel. Where'd they go? There's my line. Parallel to the bias edge right here. Okay, so I've done that. Now the goal is to line up those lines with the lines on the other end, but you have to offset them by 1. So if I line that up along this edge, line it up like that, that's the line, and I've lined it up so that it's the same one. It's the same one's there. I need to actually shift that down. So that needs to be there, roughly. So you'll have a bit sticking out. And then you're going to sew along here. So you've got one line going that way, one line going the opposite way, and you need to marry them. And make sure they're offset by 1 strip. So you can see at the end, this bit sticking out, and then it's, yeah, that is 1 whole strip, basically. So I'll show you how to pin. I pin this bit because otherwise there's no way I'd get it to match up. So I'm going to pin the second one. I don't pin the first line because that's going to be a skip, basically. Is it? Is that going to be a skip? Yeah, it is. So I'm pinning, see my fabric, about 1/2 inch in, because my seam allowance was about 1/2 inch. I used my walking foot for this, and I used the edge of the walking foot to measure it. So it's a little bit wider than normal. And so I've gone through the line on that side by about 1/2 inch, and the line on this side about 1/2 inch. Now I need to line up this top edge, make sure my pin points are lined up. This is the tricky part. And it's counterintuitive as well, because, let me pin this and I'll show you. So you've got one end of the line. Can you see? I can't see. Oh, all the people there. Oh, I need longer arms or a bigger table to display. Yeah, I agree, Laurie. I was going to do it somewhere else, but then I'm like, nah, I think you'll be able to work it. But yeah, so the line here ends right there, but the line on this side ends right here. So they're about just over 1/2 inch away from each other. But where my pin is in, that's where they align. And that's where you want it to align. You want those two lines to align and converge right where the seam is going to go. Do that. And you do end up with a funny shape once you've sewn this together. It's not going to be a loop of fabric. It's at a funny angle. I'll show you. I'll sew this one. And just keep on pinning. There we go. There we go. Keep pinning. Not all my lines are lining up exactly, but no, there. It'll work. It'll work. Hi, Carol. Here. Go here. So you can see I'm pinning all along where those lines are. That is my phone going off. Actually, let me... No, I won't be able to do it. I was going to silence it. I forgot to silence it. So if I get messages, you guys will hear everything. Pin, pin, pin. Oh, oh, this is the last one. There we go. Okay, so that's everything pinned. So that lines up with there. So I'll actually start cutting once it's sewn together along here, just so that I've got my continuous loop. Oh, that's coming undone. I didn't get pinned very well. So it's all pinned across. Oh, you're throwing it back. All pinned, 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 pinned. Again, this bit overlaps. Pin, pin, pinned, pin, pin, pinned. And you can see there's the lines are offset, so you've got an extra bit there. Okay, so now I am going to sew all along here, and you can see it it's going to end up a funny shape. It's not a proper tube, it's kind of an angled tube, because your seams kind of come together at a right angle. So you'll see I'm going to be going over that seam, so my seams are going to be running at right angles from each other, so it does make a funny shape. Oh, Diana, I'll also rewatch later when I'm on my own. No interruptions. Yeah, Friday nights. So I don't have to sew over this bit. I am literally going to start sewing, you see, right from here, but obviously on this side, because that's going to be my side down. So, ow. Got a lot of funny noises going on. I'm also going to hope that I'm winning at bobbin chicken on this one, because there wasn't much bobbin thread left, so we'll see. Cross our fingers. Pins. There we go. There we go. There, so that's what it ends up looking like. Oh, hi. Oh, I'm missing everybody. Oh, hi Jeanette, have you had your haircut? Not since you last saw me. It's been a little while. Oh, everybody's having a conversation. I'm missing them all. What are you guys saying? Anyway. So this is what it looks. See, I've only sewn to there, basically. So this is all free. And this is all free. And if I open it up while I haven't looked, ooh, 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 pleasantly surprised. So this is my seam. I hope you can see my lines. I did it in yellow. It doesn't always show very well. It's dark. My lines are matching up once each side of the seam. That's what you want to aim for, basically. Now, even when I do it, it doesn't always, I'm quite surprised by that, it doesn't always work perfectly, but you can, when you cut it, you can kind of align them. So what I'm going to do now is, actually, what I would normally do if I wasn't sitting in front of the camera at my desk is I would press this seam to one side first and then I would do the cutting. But I'm just going to go for it because I can always press it later. So I'm just using scissors. Right where you've skipped one, I'm going to start cutting along this line. Yeah, there's a mark line there. Along that mark line, that's where I'm going to start cutting. And you just cut the fabric in one continuous loop, basically. So this is a usually in front of the telly jobby. Oh, I'll just show you as I've cut it. I've just cut straight through the seam, so that's why I've got a funny angle here, which I will trim off. But that's how you start it off, basically. And it's just a case of literally just cutting along the line until you end up with one long continuous piece of bias binding. So the reason for doing it like this is you've only got 2 seams to sew, really, and you end up with all of your bias strips sewn together at once. It's kind of the quick way of doing it. The alternative would be if you just wanted to cut your fabric into strips at right angles to the selvage, basically. Trying to get a good handle on this. Works best if you put, that's how I like it anyway. Put my hand underneath it, my left hand underneath it, and then cut across my fingers. That way I know there's no fabric underneath that I'm cutting, but I don't want to. So I guess it's kind of like peeling an apple. So that's my bias strip. That's my fabric. You can see. I'm just following the lines. I have to admit, this bit is the most tedious part of the whole process. Get to the next scene. I haven't had any questions yet. Oh, have I been missing everybody? Oh, hi Terry. Oh, what? I might have already said, but what did I use to mark? Oh, well, if it's a pale fabric, I just use a pencil and my ruler. You can use a friction pen for this, because all of those friction pen marks, even if they don't come quite off, they're going to be buried inside your bias binding. So you're never going to see them. So friction pens work well. Oh, looked odd to begin with. Now absolutely. Oh, good. Yeah, see, I'm literally just cutting, just following those lines that I marked. Yeah. Hi Jeanette. Do you have fat quarters or solid colours in the shop, please? Oh, yes. There's all of the solids that are online. If you just want to have one, I cut them into fat quarters. So yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I was saying to a group the other day, so when I first started, it was a while ago, and I didn't have much money. So there's one particular shop in America I used to go to. would have really good 4th of July sales or Memorial Day sales. Memorial Day is kind of like May Day, but not on May Day. Yeah, it's a weird one. Anyway, but yeah, I have good sales is my point. And at the time, and I'm talking 24 years ago now, they had cotton quilting fabric for like $1 a yard. And because I was building up my stash, I would take about 10 bolts to the cutting desk, and I'd say, like a quarter of each, please. Yeah, I don't think I was very popular, but I do remember that. So I absolutely have no problem if you just want a long quarter or a fat quarter. I've been there, and sometimes you only need a little bit. You know, I'm perfectly happy to cut whatever you want, because at the end of the day, if it, you know, gets a quilt made, or it, yeah, it's all good. It is all good. I've actually been cutting fat 8s in the shop today. You have to watch out for that. There might be some fat 8th packs coming up in the next month or so of different things. So then you can have a fat 8th of lots of different fabrics. Oh, actually, this isn't going too badly. I'm just waffling. Only got oh, you're working like a Trojan. I'm watching with a large glass of wine. Ooh, that'd be me next. Oh, finished the hand binding on the duck pond quilt today. Oh, wow, that was quick. Oh, okay. So I have to tell everybody now, Shirley. So Shirley sent me her Tilda duck pond quilt, which was the twin to my pink duck pond quilt, which was my first ever quilt that I made for Sewing Quarter. So I got to quilt that for her last week, and now she's got it all hand bound. Wow. You'll have to send pictures of what you used to bind it with, because I have to admit I was a little bit jealous, because the background that Shirley used on her Tilda bird pond quilt was really nice colour. Nice sagey green, proper Tilda fabric. But this is where nice big fabric scissors comes in really handy, because you can get through quite a bit with just a couple of snips. You wouldn't want to be doing this with embroidery scissors, I'll tell you that much. Oh, hi Yvonne, how are you? Yeah, I'm actually impressed myself at how well this is matching, because seriously, this never happens. Usually when I come to the seam, oh wait, no, tell a lie, is that the one? Oh, that's why that's matching. I think that's a seam I actually marked across, so that's why that one's matching. But even this one, even the one that I've sewn, I gotta show this because I'm a little bit impressed with myself at how well this came out. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. So this is a seam that I sewed where I was matching. Oh, you can't see it. Where I was matching my lines. Can you see? Oh, kind of see. That one matches. Oh, that's disappointing. You can't really see it. But okay, but trust me. So, however, if you haven't quite matched the lines perfectly over that sew line, which normally happens to me, what I do is before, okay, I'll do it when I get to the next bit because that's where it is. I will either just wing it and try and cut as straight a line as I can to marry the two lines up together, or I will actually, if it's really off, I will actually go back and redraw the line so that it matches up a lot better. But you shouldn't be that much off because what was I going to say? How was I going to explain it? Yeah, the seams are the same length, so it's not you're going to be completely off. You might be sort of 1/8 of an inch off one way or the other. Okay, so this is where my line is. Oh, you can see that one. See, oh, you can see nicely how that's lining up to that one. But if it was off, I would, about this point, my next big snip basically goes straight across that seam, and I would try to make that as straight as possible so that when I stop cutting, it comes up on the line on the other side, if that makes sense. In other words, you can fudge it. If it doesn't match, you can totally fudge it, and it doesn't make a difference. Oh, I did have a question from somebody last weekend about when you sew bias binding on, what do you do to keep it from ruckling up, basically? Which can happen a little bit, especially if you do a big project. So this is my old bias binding. Like I said, I fold it in half. And then I sew that onto, so I would line that raw edge up with the raw edge of my quilt so that the fold is facing towards the middle of the quilt. And then I would sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Now, what can happen is your top, because you've got it folded in half, your top layer of fabric and your bottom layer of fabric can shift a little bit. And that's when you end up with a little ruckle. Basically, it's like, you know, when you fold your selvage edges together, if you've got a regular piece of fabric, so say 1/2 meter or a meter of fabric, and you match up your selvage edges and you fold it in half, so the fold's on the bottom, your selvage edges on the top, sometimes there can be a little ruck in the bottoms because they're not quite aligned, and that's where I usually fuss with my selvage edges and rub them against each other so that the bottom lies straight. It's the same thing with this. If one side, so you can see how I'm doing it, I'm moving, shifting, you can see at the bottom that my fold is moving. If they don't exactly line up with each other, you can end up with that. So to remedy that, what I do is pin. If you're having that problem, pin. And you know me, I'm not a fan of pinning, but this case you would pin, and I would pin literally like every couple of inches or so to make sure that that top layer and that bottom layer stays even. And I would use a walking foot, and I would increase my stitch length to about 3 stitches, or stitch length to 3 rather, because that will help it go through easier as well. So that's that. Oh, question. Oh, Sarah. Hi Sarah. Oh, it was great. Yes, it was great to see you. Short but sweet. Yes, we'll have to do it again next month, and I get to see baby. Yes. Oh, hi Helen. Can't get into my craft room. I pulled so much out to get my scraps for a talk. A bomb has literally gone off in there. I know exactly what you mean. Guess what I'm doing right now? There's no rugby tomorrow. That'd be fun. So if that was me, I would be putting either a podcast or an audiobook or something to get me through the actual cleaning up process. Actually, that's something me and Sarah talked about today, was how, you know, you can open a drawer and it just explodes out. But yeah, we know. And all the hiding places you can find to keep everything as well. Yeah, that was the other thing we did. So I'm going to continue. I actually made this bias binding. I haven't made the quilt that this bias binding goes on yet, but the bias binding will be made. Oh, hi Joanne. Oh, my necklace. Oh, thank you. Yes. Do you like my rainbows? God, I like a rainbow. Oh, Helen. Music for you. Good call. I'm a music, absolutely need music when I have to think. Certain type of music to help me think. Otherwise, yeah, I can't do it in silence. So actually, what time is it? Oh, it's only past. This is actually going pretty quick, considering. Oh, and actually, this is actually a perfect time to to make bias binding. I don't know if I've got it on here. Oh no, I didn't. I just rolled it up on this one. But what I normally do, I've got my bias binding and I want to store it is I roll it up onto an empty toilet paper tube, which, given how everybody's buying them at the minute, there should be plenty about, right? And my other trick, which don't do this, but I do, is I'll make the bias binding before the quilt is finished, and then I'll put it somewhere really safe, and then when I come to needing the binding to put on that quilt, yeah, I can never find it. Oh, love the seam ripper. Do I sell them? No, but I do love it. I've got about 3 of these actually. One of them is broken, unfortunately. I bought these from a Facebook group, an upholstery Facebook group. There's a chap that was selling them. I have seen other people who've had them, but yeah, I love them. So there's an awl on one side, seam ripper on the other, and it actually pops out so you can store them on the inside when you're not using them, so that they're safe. Oh, so that's what it looks like. Yeah, I love these, and they're just the nice. Yeah, these are proper. When you want to spend quality time with Jack, that's what you pull out. Oh, hi Joy. Yeah, I've bought Mum one. I'm sure somebody else had one as well. I can't remember. But yeah, I love them. Did try to find somebody who would make them for me. There was a nice wood carver in Spalding. That's not that far, but his lathe was broken, so I will have to endeavour to find somebody else who can get them, because they are really nice. Oh, almost done, almost done. Getting there, getting there, getting there. I'm sure this is really interesting, just watching me cut. Oh, hi Jeanette. Oh, guess who? Oh, okay, yep, no worries, no worries. So exciting. Get to quilt everybody's temperature quilt. That would be fun. Fun, fun, fun. Which I have to catch up on mine actually. I haven't done it. I've got my temperatures written, but I haven't caught up on them yet. Got a little bit excited because I thought there was going to be some warmer temperatures this week. I think one day was quite nice, wasn't it? So I'll have to double check to see if I had a temperature colour change. Yeah, it's a bit sad what you get excited about nowadays. Oh, hi Judy. Oh, I wrap my binding around Pringles. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'm not really allowed to have Pringles tubs here. They're too addictive. Too addictive. Oh, hi Terry. There is a lady on Facebook who makes them in various colours. Oh, you could ask her. Is this for... Oh, and I've dropped it. Is that for the Jacks? Is that what you're talking about, Terry? Yeah, that would be good, because I do like them. They're a serious tool. Oh, hi Helen. Oh, I'm behind. I need to do February. Yeah, I think I need to... Did I need to finish? Did I do some of March? I think I did do some of March. I can't remember. I think I did do some of March. I can't remember. Can't remember. And I haven't forgotten, I will still do the layout for setting the strips at a diagonal. I will still work that out. So just if you're interested in that, just keep sewing them into strips for now. Because then you get to spend some quality time with Jack and unpick where needed to put them into diagonals. Ooh, I'm on the last stretch. Oh, hi Helen. Just as well, February's a short month. Well, it was a long month this year, right? Well, longer than usual. Not as long as the others, but yeah. I have to say, this is going to be an interesting year for the temperature quilt. I am thinking I might have to seek out some interesting fabric to put on the label on the back, because so far it's been an odd year, I tell you. So maybe we could document sorts of things that went on this year. Oh, oh, get in there, get in there. Get in there, get in there. Oh, hi, Joanne. Oh, still playing about with temperature layout too. Yeah, see, that's the thing. You don't have to decide right now, because right now, if you just get your units done, and even if you just sew them into strips to keep the order, you'll decide later how you want it. There's no rush for the layout whatsoever. It's been really fun to see everybody's colours though. I like that. Oh, oh, almost. Last little bit. Getting there. So I think I started off with a 32 inch square. So we'll see how much that is, roughly. That's all I got. So that's 20, 40, 60, 80, oh, don't want to stretch it, 100, 20, 40, 60, 80, ooh, 200, it's a long one, 220, 40, oh, 60, 80, 290 inches of bias binding in just a little while. So the thing that took me the longest probably was marking and the cutting. So there. Oh, I love the sound of the scissors cut through the fabric. Yeah, I like that. Oh, there was a lady and we felt the same way. I love the sound of scissors cutting through fabric on the table. I've got some fabric scraps. I love the sound that makes, and this other lady felt exactly the same way. Oh, 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 you went away. You're back. You're back. Okay. Yeah, it's a sound of scissors cutting through fabric on a table. Oh, I think that's one of my favourite sounds in the world. I don't know why. It's so satisfying. Yeah. Ooh, that's going to be a whopper of a quilt. Well, this fabric, and I've got quite a bit, it's all sort of jewel tones. There's this lovely rich purple, there's a lovely teal, there's a nice magenta. This fabric all came from, I'm just looking to see if I've got an empty spool that I can use to wrap this up. Oh, maybe I'll just use this for now. This fabric I inherited from Travis's mum, and I have got a quilt planned with it. I've got some additional fabric that my mum gave me, and I'm going to do one of these days. It's planned for a stack and whack type quilt. So I've got a lovely print that matches all the colours from mum that I can use for the stack and whack, and I've got all these other lovely jewel tones from Travis's mum that I can use for binding and adding bits around the edge, maybe some borders. So yeah, I've got, it's a good job I started quilting early in life is all I can say, because I've got such a mental list of all the quilts I want to do that yeah, hopefully maybe one day they'll all get done, but we'll see. I don't know if I've reached sable yet, possibly. So sable, if you don't know, is stash accumulated beyond life expectancy. It's something I got from the men who paint miniatures. Oh, questions, Shirley. Oh, I'll send photos of the finished bird pond. Oh, yes, please. I think you'll be proud. Oh, of course I will. Oh, it was gorgeous. Perfect points. It was really nice. Just a pity I can't post a picture to show always lovely days. Ah, ah. Well, all I did was quilt it, and you did all the hard work, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh, maybe we can post a picture of the twinsy picture. It doesn't show the whole quilt, unfortunately, because I couldn't get far enough away, because it wasn't a nice enough day to put it outside, to put them outside to hang them on the line or something to get them that way. But yeah, so I'm just waffling now. Now I'm literally just me rolling up bias binding I can put away somewhere safe and forget about it. Oh, so you will get some bits like this. So this bit would actually, it does line up with the edge, but it's just a bit sticking out. It's just annoying me, so let's cut that off. When you're doing this, do be careful. It's not, don't roll them like a bandage. They don't want to be tight, stretched tight when you're rolling it. I'm just literally loosely rolling it up. I don't want any tension on my bias binding at all, so I don't want it to stretch. Yeah. Oh, any more? No more comments. So it's just me rolling up. Oh yeah, we'll sort out photo. Yes, yes. Because everybody needs to see your bird pond, because it is beautiful, beautiful. I'm also conscious, these colours, anything dark, it just attracts Monty hair, like, I don't know. When I come to the next seam, I'll show you. The other thing that makes it nice doing it this way is that, here we go, here's a seam. You can see your seam? Your seam is automatically at an angle, so that reduces the bulk when you go to sew it on. I like this method. This is how I always used to do my binding, and then I have to admit I got a bit lazy and did straight binding. I need to go back to this method more. I have to admit I haven't actually made a quilt for myself for a long time. Here we go. Almost done. Yeah, you will have one bit where you've got two seams. See that as the where your seams come at an angle. I'm just going to trim that off. That extra bit, we don't need that. There. There we go. Oh. You can't do that with a cat in the room. No, you can't. There's a lot of things you can't do with a cat in the room. There we go. And that's your bias binding. And that's how you do it. So hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, message me or say, you know, how do you do it again? Let me tell you the formula. Oh, hi, Dawn. I'm sewing on the binding tomorrow on the quilt I made for my sister's birthday this week. Ooh, yay. Yay. Nice. Right. So the formula for the size of the square that you need for your bias binding. Oh, Jackie, did I get that gorgeous murder fabric unpacked? Yes, I did. And I've been cutting it today. There's a little bit left. So those will go online possibly either this weekend or next week. But yeah. Anyway, back to the formula for the square. So it's the length of the perimeter of whatever it is you want to bind. So the perimeter of your quilt or your cushion or bag or whatever, times the bias width, so the width of your strip that you want. So multiply the length by the width. Once you've got that number, you take the square root of that number and then you add 2. And that tells you how big your square needs to be. So you've got your square. You need to cut your square in half diagonally, so you end up with 2 triangles, and then sew your triangles together to make a parallelogram. So when you match your seams up, it will be like that. So seam, yeah, like that. Sew across there, mark your lines, pin up your lines at the bottom, offsetting them by 1 strip. Sew along that and then cut, and that's it. So yeah. Oh, hi Shirley. At least if you have a go on lockdown at some point, you won't be wondering what you're going to do. No, I've got a lot to do. Actually, I've got a garden I need to get sorted out. So yeah, if I ever have to go on lockdown, I will be at least in the garden doing some, or yeah, catching up on all this. So yeah. Hi Joan. Oh, great demo. Oh, demystify. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, it is not hard. And yeah, I love Python. And like I said last week, this makes it a lot more durable because you've got all those threads crisscrossing on the fold that goes over your quilt. And if you double it, you've got twice the fabric, basically. So if you double it, you've got twice the threads keeping your quilt intact. So yeah. Oh, hi Belinda. Have I closed the shop? Oh, yeah. Right, news, big news. So unfortunately, the actual shop in Talenton is going away. Physical shop in Talenton is going away end of this month. So the 29th will be the last day that it's open. But it's still going to be all online. So it's online at the minute. That's not going to change. It's still online. Classes, workshops are going to move to Sacrawell Farm. So if you actually go online now, you can see I've got 4 workshops scheduled from April, May, June and July. I still need to confirm, well, I need to decide what kind of a workshop I want to do in July. But on each day, there will be an option of either coming and doing a sit and sew. So you can come all day and do a sit and sew. And if you bring a pattern or a project, I'll always be on hand to give you, you know, some guidance or some help if you need it, something light. And there will be workshops as well. So you can either come and do a workshop or come and do a sit and sew. So there'll be that. I'm going to be on with John on the 24th of this month. So that's where you get to see that mode of fabric, Jackie, that is all unpacked. So that's going to be on there. Let's see what else. Do you have a date for Hachanda in May? So that will be coming up. Yeah, I think that's all the news for now. Oh, the other thing, because I'm only going to be doing a workshop once a month, if there's anybody who is interested in me coming anywhere in the country, I can travel, to come to a group and do a workshop on a weekend, yeah, message me because I'm free for that. Anything you want to do. So yeah. Hi Helen. Oh, can't wait to see you with John. Yeah, it'd be nice to get back to with John. Yeah, get the old team back together. It'd be good. So that's it. So that's your bias binding, and that's how to do it. I will post a formula. I'll write it down and I'll put a picture on the Facebook page. And yeah, that's it. Oh, thanks Joanne. Oh, thanks Lorna. Okay, so I'm going to go down and have my glass of Sauvignon now, and I will see you all next week. So bye.